Yup. Good morning, everybody. Just getting ready to head out, get my day started. I usually start my day with a meeting. It gets me centered and ready. But I just wanted to take the time out, do a little car diary here with you, and just kind of share with you a little bit of the apprehension that I kind of felt when I started going to meetings. Right, I didn't know if this was going to work for me. My life was a mess, and I didn't know what to expect. And so the first time I went in, I went in humble. I was probably in trouble, with the wife at home, trying to get out of the doghouse. I really wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it to, like for her kind of thing. I was fighting going to AA or getting any help because, I didn't want to, that's plain and simple. But, the first time I came in, I was very humble and I was very open-minded. But then after going a couple of days and a week and, hearing the stories, I couldn't relate because I wasn't there yet, and in my mind, I wasn't like them. And, it actually had the reversed effect. I just started thinking, well, I'm not that bad, and, so I would just sit there for an hour and then just go home and say, hey, I went to a meeting, and thought I was doing a great thing, but I really wasn't. I was just trying to find a way to do it my way. And for a while there, I started to think, well, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I just needed a break because I was going days and weeks without drinking. But I didn't do the work, man. And then I started to go into less meetings. And then what I started to do was just kind of premeditate my relapses. You know what I'm saying? Like I would drink and, then go back to meetings like it never even happened, like Surf Pro. And, that's why it didn't work for me the first time. I didn't believe it was going to work for me, man. I really thought that if anything, I would not be a good influence on those people who were trying, since I didn't trust the program, I didn't trust people, I thought, well, probably these people are, after the meeting, they go drink or whatever. I don't know, dude. I went in with the attitude of trying to find a way so that I can go back home and say why it wouldn't work for me. And so it didn't. It didn't until I got to the point where, it was obvious that I needed to get help. So my second time around was, when my life was a complete disaster. It took all of that, even knowing that I had a problem and knowing that there was a solution, I still didn't want it. I was still fighting it. And so just proof that, I don't learn, hard-headed. I have to learn through pain. And it caused a lot of pain. I had to lose my dream job. I had to be on the brink of a divorce. I had to get to the point where I just was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then that's when I did the work. And so yeah, you don't know what to expect when you first walk in. It is true. It's people from all walks of life. Some you can relate to, some you cannot. And the only thing that anybody ever said to me was like, keep coming back. If I had a question, somebody would answer it. But the idea is that you got to figure that out for yourself. Like I had to come to the realization myself that I was an alcoholic and I could never have another drink. Like, what? And so that was a tough, I had to swallow my pride, and I had to start working on that ego that I was delusional, that I was managing my life, that I had it all together, but I really didn't. And so yeah, I had to get there, not because somebody told me to do it, not because, I had to get, nobody was pointing out my faults. The minute people start pointing out how much I drank, my attitude was like, okay, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and what, I had to get to the place where I came to the realization that, yeah, dude, the only solution here is for me to abstain but then replace it with something. And so that was the key for me. I had to change people, places, and things. That didn't mean I could never have relationships with them, but for a whole year I had to work on this program, and I had to work on, breaking everything down, all those walls and everything, and finally do the work so that God could build me back up. So yeah, it, you don't know what you're walking into. Sometimes you think but what worked was when I finally came to that realization. And not only that, but then accepted it that, you know what, man, I'm just one of those guys that can't drink, and what happens to me actually happens in less than 10% of people that drink alcohol, right? Which is where once I start, I cannot stop. And then, it's everything else that comes after that. And so, my goodness, thousands and thousands of times, oh, just one drink. Oh, babe, just a couple. I'm just going to have a couple of drinks with the guys after work. I'm just going to, I'm just going to go watch the game. Oh, it was, and really, it was just opportunities to drink, and at the end of the day, that's what it became about, because, your wife, she wants you to stop, and then you're kind of lying, trying to hide how much you drink. And then I got to the point where I just stopped hiding it and was just like, begging her not to go, but being all nasty the next day, like there's the fucking door, because I couldn't stand being held accountable, and so yeah, that first step, man, that's a tough one. But what sticks out to me the most is, to thy own self be true. And that's what helped me come to the realization that I was an alcoholic drug addict, and that I had to accept it, and then do the work. And so God has helped me restore those relationships. I can now go anywhere. I can attend any social gathering where there's alcohol. It doesn't even faze me. As a matter of fact, just the smell of it makes me sick. And I think that's a God thing. Yeah, because I just kept thinking, like, dude, we're like, everybody I know, everywhere I go, blah, 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 it seems like you're surrounded by alcohol. Well, yeah, I'm surrounded by alcohol because I'm going to the places, establishments where it's about the drinking. So, with me, if you didn't drink or you didn't get high, this guy's either law enforcement or, he's religious, but, something was wrong with you. Because in my mind, everybody did something, whether you did pills, whether you did whatever it was, we were all just, putting on, a good face on everything, keeping up with appearances, but behind closed doors, that's your real life. And my social interactions with the fellas, whatever, it was always the life that I wanted people to think that I had, but not the real one. And so when my life can be lived truthfully, no matter where I go or who I'm in front of, there's a freedom and a peace in that. And yeah, when you're drinking and drugging, you're always hiding, you're always strategizing, you're always like, the stress of keeping the bills paid, keeping the lights on, and still being able to keep it all going. Yeah, man, it does really become unmanageable. And so where I could admit I was an alcoholic and actually took pride in it, because I was like, I'll drink anybody under the table, let's do shots, and blah, blah, all that macho bullshit. It was a tough pill to swallow, because I just thought, it's gonna be boring, I need something to do, man, and so thank God that those old friends are still there. I still see them, right? And I'm the same Oscar. Like, we still laugh, we still crack jokes. The only thing that missing, the only thing that I don't do is that I don't drink. And hey, man, more power to you if you can drink. And I think that most people do have their limit, and they're responsible with it, and again, I fall in a small percentage of people that, and if I'm being honest, dude, the minute I have a drink, man, all I think about is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like a little 18-year-old, out of control. And so yeah, it's just not, it's not just stopping and staying stopped. It's, what are you going to replace, what are you going to do instead? And so, yeah, the program, I made new friends. There's an opportunity there to serve and give back and, do for someone else what they did for me. And yeah, that's what helps keep the whole thing going. And not what people said, it was more about what was in the book, which was written in 1935. It was a collaboration between the clergy and the doctors and to come up with a way and a program that would work for everybody. And it has stood the test of time. Recovery isn't about access or knowledge. Help is out there. Whether it's a 12-step program, it's a treatment center, it's therapy, it's church, or whatever it is, man, find that outlet. Don't be too prideful to ask for help, man. None of us do this alone. Many have tried, dude, and we end up drinking and drugging ourselves to death. We suffer in silence. And that was my biggest problem, was that I couldn't tell nobody that I had a drinking problem and a drug problem. Are you nuts? You can't even tell a stranger that. And you can't tell people at work. You can't tell your friends and your family. Well, who are you going to talk to? Like I said, I had too much pride and ego to come to the realization that I needed help, man. But, once I asked for it, dude, it came in waves. God sent me the right people, send me the perfect sponsor, dude. He was like, in mid-70s, had 30-plus years sober, from the Bronx, Puerto Rican, just like he could have been one of my uncles, dude, and just no nonsense, no bullshit, Man jumped out of a third-story window and survived, and was like, God don't want me, the devil didn't want me, so I just kept drinking, and God, the program, and God really, changed that man, dude. And so that's why I believe, man, if he changed me, dude, he can change anybody. And even when I felt like, man, is this thing gonna work? I don't know. And you got all kinds of doubts. You also got like, how do I go back to work? And there's all these things that are gonna happen. You're still dealing with consequences from when you were drinking. That is the biggest thing, is that you're trying to do the right thing, you're changing, but the world around you is not. And that can be frustrating. That could send you back out. So you got to stay connected to your folks in AA. There's something about all of us having this disease that kind of brings us together. And sometimes it's just somebody there to listen to you, man. That's really what it is. The anonymity and the fellowship of, I get it, man. I've been there. And then, yeah, the ability to call somebody. I used to call my sponsor all the time, and it had really nothing to do with drinking. Like, I wasn't calling him going, hey, I feel like having a drink. You better stop me. It wasn't like that. It was more like, dude, the kids, the wife, the job, the this, the that, blah, 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 blah. And then after I get done bitching and complaining and venting, he'd go, okay, and it was, a lot of it had to do with the wife, so I had some delusion or some expectation that the minute I stopped drinking, things were going to be cool with us, and we were going to make up, and we were going to rekindle that spark. And, I just wanted her to snap out of it, and that's not how it works, man. So I would call and complain. Oh, she's still mad, and she's still this. And he'd say, well, man, I'm not a marriage counselor, but do you feel like drinking? And I'd be like, no. And he'd go, okay, well, don't fuck it up. Keep your head in the books. Because the solution was in the book. The more I read, the more I understood what was wrong with me. I can't say that enough. Now I block that time every morning. Every morning I pray, I meditate. You know what I'm saying? And, I ask just God to give me the strength to get me through another 24 hours, dude. Life is coming at me, again. just because you get sober, it doesn't mean that, you know, you're not going to have problems and you're going to handle everything perfectly. Nah, dude. What it does give me is some tools that I could get connected to that'll help me just get through another 24 hours. Because really, that's all we got today. So anyway, thank you for tuning in to Recovery Talk with Oscar the First. And again, man, you know, don't suffer in silence. Find what works for you, you know, and you'll experience the same freedom that many of us are experiencing, and it's just a way better way of living than when I was. And even on my toughest days sober, it's still better than the pit that I was in 7 years ago. So God bless you. I love you.